Hello, folks. I am your host, Craig T. Stewart, and I'm here with,
Jeff Mayhew.
and this is another episode of What the Book. Hey, Jeff, what's the book?
Shadow of my tears. I mean, giant. Shadow of the giant.
Oh, Shadow of the Giant. Okay, so is this the one where Jack and the beanstalk come down from the sky?
No, it's the one where the giant leaves to the sky.
Oh,
Spoilers.
might need a refresher then. I think past Craig or future Craig, I don't know, whichever Craig that isn't this current one. I think he's got a synopsis for the series so we can get caught up and then this book for the audience. All right, folks, a little bit of the history of the book series, and then I'll talk about Shadow of the Giant. The Ender's Shadow series parallels Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game from Bean's viewpoint. Say that 3 times fast. In Ender's Shadow, the street-smart orphan Bean survives Rotterdam's slums and attends battle school, joining with Enderwigan and his Geesh to defeat the Formics. In Shadow of the Hegemon, the second book, Bean's story shifts to Earth, where Bean and Petra battle Ashiel's global manipulations amid political betrayals. In Shadow Puppets, we continue to raise the stakes as Bean and Petra, now married, hunt Ashiel and his Chinese allies, all while attempting to safeguard their stolen embryos. Eventually, they end Ashiel's reign of terror, but leave the world's tensions unresolved. In Shadow of the Giant, this book, a war-torn Earth struggles to find peace and unity with battle school graduates influencing global powers. Peter Wiggins schemes to transform the hegemon into a unified global government, rivaling Ali's Islamic Caliphate and Verlomi's Hindu uprising. Bean and Petra evade threats while tracking down and raising their children. The couple's path leads them through Peter's power plays amid assassination and proxy wars. And as Chinese and Indian forces clash under Han Su and Suriawang, Bean grapples with his fatal genetic condition while supporting Peter's rise to power. Each page of this book contains moral conflicts, fractured loyalties, and fragile truces as revelations reveal the shadow plays of the international fleet. The story propels Bean's family toward off-world refuge, while it highlights the burdens of battle school brats as world leaders. Some themes from this book that we're going to be discussing directly and indirectly. First one is the leadership and power. Second one would be global unity versus the division, right? Ashiel versus Peter, or Ali and Verlomi and Han Su versus Peter, so on and so forth. The third is the personal sacrifice and family. We get to see a lot of this with Bean and Petra. And lastly, kind of encompassing everything together, the war strategy and legitimacy of governance. With all that said, back to present Craig. Well, that was a few paragraphs. So we're back.
What is past Craig's problem? Why is he so mad at future Craig?
So the problem with past Craig is he always assumes that the responsibility he hoists onto future Craig, that future Craig will actually do and not just kick the can down the road. A lot like, government officials and lockdowns and shutdowns and stuff,
Except for Mazer Rackham and Graf.
Yeah, those guys are always busy. They're up to something, aren't they? They were up to quite a bit in this book, pretty directly, I might add.
Yeah, which is different for direct. Very different for them, isn't it?
Well, because it's illegal for the international fleet to get involved in domestic affairs, but with Ashiel out of the picture in this book, because he died in the last book, in case anyone didn't remember, that they're like, okay, we know who we want to lead the world. Now, how do we get there, and how do we do it safely, or with the least amount of casualties as possible? And that's like a reoccurring theme throughout the book, the unlisted reoccurring theme. Yeah. You want to
What'd
dig
you think about the
into?
book? What'd you think? What'd you think about this book? Just real quick. Sorry.
No. What do I think about the book? This is what is it? The second or the third of the books in the series where there's a chapter that I cannot not cry reading. We I'm going to ask one of the questions is going to be related to that. It's the Verlomi's propaganda chapter, and there's a little chapter later that also makes me a little teary eyed. But for whatever reason, it's just the compelling way that Orson Scott Card goes about some of these scenes and just deep diving into history and applying it and showing what kind of thought process runs through someone who is trying to evoke emotion out of someone, even fictionally, and how he's able to do that to me, the reader, who knows what's happening. Like, I know what Verlomi's doing. She's abusing the fact that people think of her as a god in this book. And it's also kind of weird how she goes about it, but at the same time, it's like I'm sympathetic to her cause. So
Mm.
overall,
I
great book. But how'd you feel about it?
So I felt like it started out a little slow, and maybe it was just my week that I was having. My week was pretty brutal, so like that might have played a factor in it. I felt like I was like forced to read it because I had too much stuff on my plate already. But man, the back half of that book like gutted me. Like it at number one, it came together so beautifully,
Mhm.
and it really tied up the whole series. Like we were talking just a little bit before we got started. It kind of felt like this was the end of the series. I know that we have one more book, and we'll get into that of what we think that is towards the end of the show. But man, it gutted me. It gutted me in so many ways. And we'll touch on those things as we go through. But I loved this book. Like, I loved Ender's Game. I loved Ender's Shadow. I love Shadow of the Hegemon. I loved what's that other one behind me there? Shadow Puppets. I love them all. Okay, but I don't know. This might have been my favorite now. I'm gonna go back after this show and I'm gonna rank them. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna put all my books together. I'm gonna flip through them, and I'm gonna try to rank which books I think are the best. But this Ender's Shadow was pretty good too. I think this one, Ender's Shadow, Ender's Game. I don't know. I'll
Well,
I don't know.
if you want to get I mean, granted, this is following the Battle School and the fallout of Battle School on Earth, but the Ender saga goes on with Ender. We kind of, in the next book, we'll get a little bit of a connection there. The Shadows in Flight series, but you have to read the whole other series to get a better understanding of
There's a whole nother series.
there's multiple series. This is running alongside Ender Saga and Ender's life and what he's doing. I don't know if it includes other people. I've not actually read the other series.
We are totally putting them on next season. Like
Oh, no.
we've got. Can we just like read the whole series next season? Like, can we just like pick the whole series? Just like do a whole like
It's
season
not-
of what the.
It's not what the book. It's what the OSC.
I'm down. I'm down.
What the
I
OSC?
tweeted. I tweeted during this week, and you saw it.
Yep.
I think he might be the best writer of our generation. Like, especially considering where we sit right now on the precipice of the history that is surrounding us. I think that this might be like a generation of boys need to be reading these books. They are so valuable because they tell a real life story in a fictional way that brings a lot of depth and emotion to something that is horrible and awful, but also a part of life.
Yeah. And like completely agree. And he was thinking about and writing some of this back in the 90s.
85. I think the first one.
Well, that's when
Ender's Game-
Ender's Game came out. This series started in 1999, and I think Shadows in Flight is like 2017 or so. Maybe I'm a little off on that one. I'm not gonna Google's it, but definitely understands history and how it applies to the present. And there's a lot of parallels with nations. I think I've said this before. There's a lot of parallels with nations today and where we're headed and where um, the experts think we're headed. Like, is America just going to become a sleeping giant? Is Russia going to uh, get more ambitious over time? Is India going to make a move? What about the Islam, the caliphate? Is that ever going to come back together? Like, these things are manifesting in this book after the fallout of the bugger invasion, and it's really amazing what one leader or one super bright person that everyone recognizes. Like, I'm gonna pick a lie, right? He's part of the Islamic Caliphate now. He's the leader of all of the Muslims on earth. And he's not even my age. He's like 20, if that, right? He's super young, but because he was Ender's G's, his essentially second in command, he may not be the smartest person alive, but everyone looks up to him. And it only takes like one or two of those people, and you can alter the course of history. And that's what, like, we were talking a little bit before, and you picked up one of those books. So what was it, Alexander and
Philip and Alexander.
Yeah, Philip was his father, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and Julius Caesar. We get a little bit of like General Lee in the book. Like, just all these different. Genghis Khan is another one. It's like, who's going to be Khan? Who's going to be Joan of Arc? There's so many parallels, and it's like, when you put it that way, and you know that what these children are capable of, or I guess young adults are capable of, it's like, it can be scary. And when we look around today, do we have, and this isn't even on the questions, but do we have leaders like that today? In any field, not necessarily politics or war.
I say they exist, but they're not in positions of leadership right now.
Yeah. Not in positions of nation state leadership.
Or like, known leadership. They could be somewhere leading some group, but we don't know about them yet. And they are sure to rise to the top when the moment comes.
Yeah. I think one that we could argue would belong on that list would be someone like Elon Musk. And like, I know he's kind of a bit of a all over the place, a little bit crazy at times, but he's a visionary, he's ambitious, and he sets a goal and he goes for it. Whether you call him a Shield or Peter or Petra, I don't think it matters. I think he's up there.
I could see that. I don't know. I used to really have a high opinion of Elon. My opinion of Elon keeps on going down with the more that he tweets. Only because, like, you know, part of being a leader is like knowing when not to say things and maybe like learn what you're talking about before you talk, you know, so you don't look like a fool. Because once you start to look like a fool, it's hard to be a leader anymore. But anyways, let's get back into the book. We don't need to talk about Elon here.
We don't want to talk about the real world.
Oh, we'll talk about the real world.
Oh, okay. So the first question, just kind of like dipping our toes in, like, who typically gets the credit for achieving objectives or goals or what have you? Is it the leader, the workers, or is it everyone involved?
I mean, it's typically the people at the top. They're the one that get the credit. They also get the blame, but they get the credit. You know, look at history. You know, George Washington gets a lot of credit. James Madison gets a lot of credit. There was a lot of people that helped him along the way, right? Yeah. And those, well, Madison's not mentioned, but Washington is mentioned in the book, obviously. And, you know, look anywhere. Look, you know, Napoleon, Alexander, you know, Eisenhower, you know, like throughout history, the people that are at the top get the credit. And to a large degree, they deserve the credit because it's really hard to be at the top. And you can tell that in these kids' stories, like the decisions that they have to make, the way that they process information, the relationship building, the relationship, I don't know, like sifting. Like you really have to understand who's your friend and who isn't your friend. And that's a really difficult thing to do. And there's that one line that's repeated throughout the book that's Ender's line. That's like, you have to know your enemy well enough to love them, which I think that was in Ender's Game, right?
Yeah, that's where it came from. When
right.
I know my Actually, it's not on my quote wall because I only put my quotes up. I'm moving soon, so I figured why would I bother putting all of them up? But that's one of the quotes that came from this series I put on the wall. For those that remember some of the old posts, the one of the red or pink ones in the background post-it notes on the wall, it was that quote. Um, it is such a phenomenally true quote. It's unless you can truly understand your opponent, you have no chance at being able to counter whatever it is they're doing on the battlefield, or whether it's physical or metaphysical, whether it's on a chessboard or in the military. And that's what he ended up realizing in order to defeat the buggers. And all of the Geesh are figuring that out now. And it just so happens to be the one person that, well, I guess that both Peter and Verlomi, neither one were part of Ender's Geesh, and they seem to fall trap to that a little bit. Especially Peter last book with Ashiel. He didn't understand his enemy. And Verlomi just doesn't understand herself, and I would say she's her greatest enemy in this book, which we'll get into a little bit later, I think. So yeah.
Back to the question just a little bit is the leaders get the most credit, but everybody in the group also gets credit, right? America in a large degree gets a lot of credit for what they did, for the revolution, building the new government, becoming this large, nation, and now, empire. But you also look at the battle school guys, the battle school group, right? Ender was the leader of the battle school, but everybody got credit when they got back to Earth. Everybody was a hero, and they all had their special place, and they all ended up being their own independent heroes, or at least they had the idea that they were.
They had their own sphere of control or influence. They had the megaphone in their section of the world. Or in the case of Fly Molo, they just didn't care. I think it was Fly Molo. Was it the Philippines or the Australia? Both, I think, Australia and the Philippines. Those battle school brats. It's like that they're not really relevant, which is kind of sad. We didn't get to see much from them, but there's plenty of perspectives in this book to go through. So, yeah, I do think there's an aspect of who gets credit. It's basically whoever takes the credit. And the person with the biggest microphone does end up with the majority of the credit when you do a survey of the people that are listening. I think of like when you write a resume or you go in for a job interview, you take a lot of credit for things that you did on a team. But like if you can specifically say, no, I was a part of this action or I said this thing, then you're able to take credit even if it was a group consensus or a group action to do that. So some of it's a little bit, you have to take it.
Well, I mean, there's being humble and then there's being realistic. You were part of the team that did the thing, right? And, if you're going to take the risk, there might as well be some sort of upside. Otherwise, why would anybody take the risk, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think some of these people take the risk because the risk is the thing that drives them. It's they talk about it in the book. It's like it's the ambition, and it's described as a disease, but it's also described as like the cure for the disease. Sounds very familiar. What is that quote by that guy James Madison from the Federalist Papers? Ambition must be made to counteract ambition.
Yep. And I actually wrote that down somewhere. I think it was ambition meets ambition is what I wrote. And that's
the Calhoun, power meets power.
Yeah, and I said that because like Verlomi meets with Peter, she meets with Hansu, and then she eventually goes to Alai, and it's like, marry me, and you get all of India. And they're like, we have our own planet. Why would we do that? Yeah. And Alai's the only one that gets suckered into it. And I think it was Verlomi's thoughts were like, good thing that there weren't too many women up in battle school, or that they didn't teach the young men about women. This is the only reason why Alai actually fell for it in any way, I think.
She's a very like Cleopatra type figure, don't you think?
That would be a good description now that you say it, yeah. I want to say more like Medusa,
Mm.
but maybe that's just my view of her, my perspective, my judgment.
Yeah, I mean Cleopatra seduced both what is
Julius
it?
and Antony.
Julius Caesar and Antony. So, um, and she just made her way down the list of the boys. She's like, I got my power. I know what my power
Whoever
is, and
wins, I'm here.
I'm gonna use it. And on the other side of that, man, I mean, there's something to be said. Obviously, like there's this, there's the human sexual nature to it, but there's also the civilized, um, I don't know, desire for affection and companionship. And ultimately, that is kind of what he falls for. He actually falls for that.
Yeah.
And I think it maybe it's not necessarily, I think it's implied and not necessarily directly like said, but I feel like that's what he falls for. Where the other people, specifically Peter, he doesn't seem, he's not looking for that. The hole in Peter's life is his brother and his father, right? And I don't know if we know enough about, oh my gosh, what's his name? The Caliph, the one that gets betrayed by, Ali. I don't know if we know enough about Ali to know exactly what his hole is, right? Like every human being is flawed. They all have a hole, and it's created somewhere along the way. And they mentioned that it might be, being away. Maybe it's being away from his mom, right? Like maybe it's that companionship, that affection he didn't get as a child from being away, and he's filling it with Verlomi now,
Well, so we have to think. Let's dig into a lie while we're here. The next question was about a lie anyway, right? He comes back to Earth, and he's one of the Geesh that doesn't get captured in Ashiel's plans. We don't really hear from him. We don't actually know if he's alive or not, or what he's doing, if he's irrelevant. But he was made Caliph, and he was being hidden in, was it Damascus, I think, underground. And he's just been studying to be a good imam. Like, he's trying to be this religious leader, and he's hiding because obviously Ashiel's up to no good. But at the same time, the Muslim world doesn't want the rest of the world to know, because what were they all doing before the buggers came? They were fighting. Islam lost. Places got nuked, like Mecca, like I think Jerusalem got nuked as well. Bad things happened, and the Muslims are like, okay, let's chill out. Like, let's be the religion of peace here. Let's be good. And part of that concession is like, we're not going to build a military, and we're not going to like think about a caliph where we're all united. So they kind of like did this, and it's like, oh, we don't know how the rest of the world's going to react to it. And so Ali comes back to Earth, and he just spends most of his time becoming a religious leader, a religious teacher. And in some ways, like where Verlomi definitely drinks her own Kool-Aid, Ali definitely doesn't. He realizes some of it, but he doesn't realize the full extent of his isolation from the rest of the world until his marriage with Verlomi, until he actually goes to India. And it's early in the book. What is it? Not even 100 pages in, where Peter and Petra go to meet Ali, and he's realized by this point that he's trapped. He's actually a prisoner that he can't get out himself. He needs someone from the outside to give him probable cause. So, Jeff, do you remember how he broke free?
Oh my gosh, no.
It involves Petra doing what Petra always does, and that's say the thing that you shouldn't say. And so the guards are coming in. It's like, you can't say that to the Caliph, and that's what snowballs into him taking back control.
That's right. Yes. I do. I remember it vaguely. That was at the beginning of the book when I was having a bad week. And...
Yeah. Fair enough.
I remember it. I just, not the specifics enough to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's how he gets control of the compound. The issue is he never leaves the compound, so he doesn't have information as to what's truly happening outside of it. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't realize that atrocities are being committed in India. There's, bad things happening that happen in war, where people are killing people they necessarily shouldn't, civilians and so on. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, this isn't what we're supposed to do. We don't want to be oppressors. We're supposed to be the nice guy. And so he eventually goes to India, and meets the general there. And that's also where Velomi comes in, and basically what does she do? She walks all the way through the compound and strips her clothing and just stands
naked. Naked.
Yep.
She's naked. She's using her female power to trick the boys. Because them boys, you know, they've been away at battle school. And human nature is human nature.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting the way that, like, you know, they told a story about how, you know, the other people in the room, you know, they look away, but at some point they realize, like, nobody's gonna know if I look, so I'm gonna look.
Everyone's going to look at something like that, even if you're not supposed to, especially if you think you can get away with it. Like,
No, I am a married
human
man.
nature.
I am not gonna look. I'll do everything in my power not to look. I am a married man, and I will do the right thing, and I won't even peek through my fingers.
I don't know. She might have a weapon on her, even if she is naked. You have to check. For the sake of the Caliph.
Somebody else's responsibility.
The bystander effect. Someone's got to, and if it's not me, then who?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's stay on that thread and just go through it and finish it, and then go back into the threads of the other characters. So before Verlomi does this, obviously the Muslims and the Hindus are trying to work together. She's actually living kind of like a despotic life. She's basically rejecting technology, getting back to a more traditional Indian and what they might do. And
She's embraced her culture.
There you go. Embrace her culture and her traditions. And she starts believing that she is a god in the way that things are happening around her. Kind of like a Sheila in a way, where things just always work out for her.
She loses herself.
She loses herself in that image. But she lives right outside the compound where Alai is. And we get, was it Chapokar, I think his name is? He was the Prime Minister of India when he made the deal with Pakistan and all that happened with Ashil. He comes back and he's like, I want to talk to whoever's in charge. Like, I used to run this place, you know? And Verlomi, he eventually talks to Verlomi. And what does Verlomi say? We don't need a government.
Mm-mm. I am the government.
I tell the people how it is, and they act accordingly.
I am their goddess. I am their goddess.
The question becomes, did India, in this book, need a government? And would it have been better off with a government?
Well, I would say yes, because they fell for a false prophet. And that false prophet led them to slaughter.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. She becomes a false prophet, but she saved India multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, she did, and if she was part of a government and she used her talents in that way and didn't lose herself believing that she was a god, then I think it would have been better, right? But because there wasn't a government to help remind her that she's still a human being and not a god, and that, like, as Madison would say, if men were angels, there would be governments would not be necessary, right? And but men aren't angels and they're not gods, and so the governments are kind of the best thing we can do to check each other, to make sure we don't lose ourselves and lead all of us to slaughter.
Yeah. Pretty good point.
Which is also, I mean, that's what Peter's doing. That's like his entire mentality.
Yep. And last question on this front. Does government require leaders or figureheads to function?
Yes.
Tell
People aren't going to, I mean, they touch on it in the book. Is it Peter that's talking about it. I can't remember now, or maybe I'd have to find it. But when they mention Washington and America's founding, right, and the idea, this new frontier, this new government, that's built on, something different than the rest of the world, and Washington is this, leader that kind of pulls it all together. But the leaders afterwards really, they're not as great as Washington. But because they were able to pull this idea and build such strong institutions, the government protected itself or the people from bad leadership, right? But it is when things get bad, it's good leadership that pulls it together, right? And I would disagree a little bit with, the analysis of both Adams and specifically Jefferson in the way that they portray him as a bad leader. Ultimately, if you actually think about it, the reason that America is successful, the reason that it's able to establish its institutions the way that it's able to establish its institutions is actually the exact thing that Graff wants to do. It's allowing humans to continue to spread out and build their own thing, be their own, pioneers, if you will. The continuation, and that is what allowed America to really prosper and grow into such strong institutions. If America was confined to the East Coast for the entire time, I don't think America is what America is today, or the United States, right? Because America is like the whole thing, right? But it's like the United States, right? And the Louisiana Purchase. I think Jefferson understood this. Like, people need space. People need space to be able to create and do things. And without space, they start to fight over space and other things.
Even when we have all of space at our disposal, like in this book, there's still enough people on Earth with different opinions that are willing to go to war to control Earth. Which
and they're trying to get rid of that. They're trying to fix that. Like they're trying to unite they're trying to unite Earth under this one, government that's similar to the United States, a representative democracy where people self-government, right, where each nation has its own space to operate independently, right, but respect certain agreements and borders. And then they're trying to move everybody. That's like, look, you don't like it here? We got colonies everywhere. Right, just like the British Empire, right? Like a whole bunch of people didn't like the British Empire, right? They didn't go to civil war, although there was definitely civil war in the British Empire at some point in time. Yep. But like they went to America, they went to this new place instead of fighting, because people don't really, at the end of the day, they don't really want to fight. They only fight when it's kind of like the last resort, or they feel like it's the last resort. If there's another option, they're going to take the other option.
Yeah, I mean, the American Civil War is an example of that, where things got to the point of being kinetic, yeah. And so you have is it the first Battle of Manassas is what it was? And they're like, okay, the South won this war. Okay, we can be separate states. And everyone thought that the war was over. No, it was just getting started. Like, people don't actually want to go to war. They didn't think people would actually die that day. They thought it was just going to be yelling at each other and going home. And sometimes it doesn't go that way. So, since we're kind of leading that direction anyway, like, one of the things that is super apparent, I think we said it earlier, Graff and Rackham are getting heavily involved, right? And they want to win over the remainder of Ender's Geesh and get them off planet. And their reasoning for this, as we were just talking about, is they don't want any figureheads, no leaders that could possibly conquer the Earth that are standing in the way of the person they chose, Peter. And it just happens to be all of Ender's Geesh. Do they succeed?
What do you mean, do they succeed?
So when they sit down with basically everyone, most of the people are there. I don't think Eli's there. I don't think Hansu is there, but the rest of Ender's Geesh is there, and they're talking, and they talk about Julius Caesar, they talk about Napoleon, Dink's there as well, and there's a lot of like, oh, Hiram, I can call you Hiram now. We're colleagues, we're co-workers, we're adults now. There's a lot of like amusing callbacks to Battle School, and it's a little bit immature, but at the same time, like everyone at that table, they recognize the issue. They're all capable, and they all have that ambition. That's why they were chose for battle school. And Graf
Yeah.
and Rackham are doing everything they can to convince these people. It's like the world would be better without you. As weird as it sounds. So like,
Yeah, I would say that they are successful.
Eventually.
Eventually, right? And maybe not in the way that they intended, but you know, what plan actually comes to fruition the way that you actually write it out, right? Like
Well,
everything is, you know, especially when it's new, everything's trial and error. You know, if you're going to create a plan, you have to have multiple pathways if you want to be successful.
yeah.
Right? And I think there was very clearly, whether it was said or unsaid, there was multiple pathways, and they go back and forth. There's another scene later, I think it's Rackham or Graf and Peter, where they're talking about like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm not doing anything. I already did my thing. You know, like I made them think this. Like, there's no way that Broloni's gonna, you know, attack. Like, this would be suicide. And they're like, I think that's what's gonna happen. And they're like, well, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, and Peter is that leader. Peter is the guy that kind of sees everything. He's piecing everything together. He's pushing buttons lightly in the right places. And man, Peter's character, man, especially from the other books, like, does he not come together as like a decent, really, like, I really liked him in this book. And
Didn't you hate him early on?
I didn't hate him. I didn't like Ashiel, and I didn't like Peter as much as I liked Bean. And I related with Peter in a lot of ways. You know, like, I mean, I think most firstborn sons relate with Peter in the way that he relates with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so yes, my answer is yes. They were successful. I'm not going to jump ahead to the next thing. So
No, go ahead, jump to the next thing.
well, it's not to the next thing. It's like 6 things down. So let's get to the next thing. We'll go in order here. I'm trying to be disciplined today.
We're not going in order. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Now I don't even know what we were talking about. Oh yes, Graf and Rackham. They just can't get over comparing their children to ancient conquerors. And they keep trying to win them over. Is it the first chapter, the first scene where Rackham meets with Hansu and makes this offer? Like, it's like one of the first things that happens, and Hansu's like, I don't think I can do that. I need to be here. And Rackham basically gives him the words that he needs to basically go take over China and become emperor.
My hands are clean, but not because I wasn't prepared to bloody them. What a great line.
Such a great line. And that's it's the unfortunate truth of leadership. Like, you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. Whether you do or not is a different story, but you have to be willing to do the work if it needs done. And it could be as simple as helping move a server rack into place, or as high stakes as walking in and assassinating someone, as scary and unfortunate as that is.
Well, I would say, yes, you are right. However, there is one leader that kind of avoids the really dirty work.
Are we talking about Peter again?
Yeah.
All roads lead back to Peter.
In this book, yes, all roads lead back to Peter. This was Peter's book.
But who has access to all the information? Who has the perspective of everyone? Peter.
Yeah.
He has enough to go off of, right? And he's always withholding information as well, but no one else has the amount of access to other people that Peter has. Okay, maybe Graf and Rackham, but they only use their powers for good, and they totally don't get involved in Earthside politics. Didn't happen in this book. Yeah. Where do you want to go next? You want to go America and ambition, or do you want to talk?
Let's go there.
Okay.
Let's go there.
So what's with America in this book? They're up to something.
I mean, they're up to nothing. They've gotten tired of being a leader. Probably because they get shit on, because being the leader is like the worst thing in the world to be. Everybody hates you when you're on top, right? Like, think about it.
Everyone
The
hates
Yankees,
Peter. Everyone hates the
everybody
Yankees.
hates everybody hates the Yankees. Everybody hates the Patriots. Like, when you are on top right now, the Chiefs are on top of the football world. Everybody hates them. They're
Taylor
started out
Swift.
like Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce. They're like 2-3, and everybody's like cheering that they're terrible, or the 2-4, whatever it is. Like, when you are at the top of the mountain, you suck. Everybody hates you. They're coming for you. They want to knock you off the top of that mountain. And it sounds like America just got tired of taking everybody's shit and just like receded into their hole, right?
But did they?
Well, and they didn't, right? They're leading from behind. They're leaving
By
from
proxy.
By proxy.
They're funding the IF essentially, is
Right.
my understanding. I don't know if it's ever directly mentioned, but
I think it is kind of. They mention like where the funding.
I think it's inferred based off of what Peter or Bean or someone says. Yeah. But it says a lot about like, yeah, you don't want to, you're that sleeping guy. It's like, it's kind of like Italy. It's kind of like Spain. Like, their cultures right now are super laid back. But we also have to remember, both were huge empires in their time. Spain and the conquistadors, the Roman Empire, like, they had their day in the sun. They're okay with where they're at now, even if it isn't perfect. America kind of has that attitude in this book.
Yeah. What like year is this supposed to be? I've lost track almost.
I think it's like 200 years in the future, give or take. Because like World War III's in the what would be our lifetime, and the bugger comes in like our children or grandchildren's time, and then 100 years between those two wars and the final one.
Yeah. Yeah, which you can see, like, it's and you know what I picture in that time frame is like, you know, the end of Avengers. You know, Captain America has finally aged, right? And he like gives away his shield, right? Like, that's America. That's America. It's just like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of having to fight every single day and try to convince people to do the right thing, and people think I'm doing their, you know, like there was the whole Civil War thing where he had to fight against his own team because he's standing up for what's right, and the other people are trying to be like, well, yeah, but the world is going to fall apart unless we take control of it. And it's like, but that's not how you lead, you know, which by the way is exactly Peter's point, right? Like, Peter is trying to create a government where everybody is incentivized to join on their own accord. Nobody is forced or coerced, right? Because he understands, and it's back to that the ambition thing that they talk about at Battle School, and they were talking about being, is like, people are successful when they want it, right? If you can incentivize other governments to want to be part of the same thing, then it will be successful, simply because everybody decided they want to do it. And that means that whatever impediment comes in their way, they'll find a way over it, around it, or through it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how to add to that. That's perfect.
What are you going to... I had a bad week. It came together all at the end.
It all comes together now. Yeah. Let's keep talking about ambition. Ambition must counter ambition. What was it? Power must meet power, is what Calhoun said.
Calhoun said, yeah.
That
led us to the Civil War, though.
And I'm sitting here, it's, what page is it? It's 210 in it's the page where Verlomi and Peter's boats come in to view, and we get the perspective of the different boats and when they first meet. And the first thought that comes to my head is ambition meets ambition. Because Verlomi's like, I'm a goddess. I am India. And I want Peter to marry with India, and for India to lead this thing that he's got going on. And Peter's like, no, I can't favor any nation. Like, to your point, the Free People of Earth, the FPE, such a great idea. Much better than the United Nations. I think they even give flack to United Nations.
They make that joke. I love that.
Yeah. I can't say that this book, the first time I read it, didn't influence how I thought about things when I went to write something like Emergence and Fall of the West, and even some other works that I haven't released. There's a lot of those kinds of concepts that really made sense to me early on. But ambition meets ambition. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily ambition counteracts ambition or power meets power in this particular scenario, because it's just like two people talking. But the stakes on the table are, is the nation state going to rule, or is Peter's international organization going to rule? So in a way, it is power meets power.
But I think Peters allows both to rule. And I think that is ultimately the appeal to it. It's very similar to what we have here. And it's also been my, like, as I study American history, it has been my, like, pet peeve of, like, how we got sidetracked as a nation. Is like, we are this republic that kept on adding republics into it, and it was very successful. And then, you know, sometime in the late 18th, 19th century, 18? Yeah. So, you know, the 1890s, the early 1900s, we started adding territory outside of our continental U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And we did add Hawaii as a republic to our state, in a state, but we didn't add Guam. We didn't add Cuba. We gave Cuba back. We didn't add Philippines, which again, the Philippines didn't want us there. It was really far away. Like, we weren't going to be able to unite that. However, we do have this province called Puerto Rico. Right, and
Still
it is,
yeah.
And we still have it, and the people there are Americans. That's kind of a topic of today because of the Super Bowl halftime show or whatever. Which, by the way, I did not know Bad Money was a musician. I thought he was a character in a children's book because
I didn't know
I
he
read
existed.
children's book. I know, right? But he's Puerto Rican, and this has brought up the topic, right? And you know, in Peter's, basically what Peter has done is he's taken the American Republic and he's expanded it to the entire world. And he's like, hey, look, we've got this great thing over here. Want to be part of it? Right? Which ultimately, like, that's a great idea. Like, why didn't somebody else do that? Although you can also see the downsides of that, which I don't know if we ever see in the next series. You just told me that there's another series. But when Peter's gone, I wonder what happens to all that power that he's deconstructed and he's feathered away, and they're colonizing other places. So I think that ultimately, I think things will work out because of the system and what's going on forward. But if they were trapped on Earth, they couldn't spread out to other colonies, and that power, even though it was decentralized at some point in time, could be re-centralized.
Mm-hmm.
So just
and
thought.
One of the things that we haven't talked about, and Peter talks about it here, he truly says, once I achieve this thing, I'm going to step down. I don't want to be hegemon. I want to go about my life once I accomplish this goal. And that's one of those, like, laws of power. Aim for something, and once you hit it, stop. Don't go past that mark. And Peter has identified that mark, and I think he hits it. It's not clear if he really does step down or if he continues leading in some role until his death. But we don't, the other series, as far as I know, doesn't actually dive into what happens on Earth after this fact.
It sounds like he is asked to help out, maybe in an advisory role in other circumstances.
Yes. Much like someone must help the cat. Yeah, and before we start talking about being in Petra, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up that I think you might have an opinion on. It was page 270, 271 in my book, towards the end.
Is it the same as my book?
Is it the mass market?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's where they talk about, like, atoms and the American founding.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, did they hit the nail on the head? Was Adams really paranoid and lazy? Was Jefferson as vile a scheming politician as a nation has ever been cursed with?
I mentioned this earlier. I disagree with their assessment here.
Tell me more.
So where is this stuff on? Adams, Washington was great, but Adams was paranoid and lazy, and Jefferson was a vile and scheming politician as a nation has ever been cursed with. Now, I would agree that Jefferson was a scheming politician. I don't think he was vile, though. I think he was scheming the same way that Peter was scheming, right? Like earlier on, the way that Peter was scheming is like he had this vision, and he thought if he didn't fulfill this vision, somebody else more nefarious, Hamilton, would take, lead the country or lead the place in a wrong direction. Achille, like there's a lot of parallels there. And Adams was certainly not lazy. He was petty, and he was, but he was also humble and hardworking and authentic, and he made hard decisions, whether they were right or wrong, but he made them for what I believe he believed was the right thing in his heart and in his faith. And ultimately, I think the country was well served by him. I think he's often overlooked as a great president. Anyways, I digress.
So you disagree with the assessment? Well,
I mean, I technically do agree with the, I agree with parts. I disagree with other parts.
You disagree with how extreme the whichever character it was, I don't remember off the top of my head, is thinking about it. Because,
right.
I think any scheming politician is vile, as me personally. So, if Jefferson's a scheming politician, well, he's therefore vile. He's a tyrant in my mind space.
So is Peter vile?
I think so. In that same context, I have to,
Well, I mean, that goes back to what you were talking about. Leadership is like leadership. You have to be willing to get your hands dirty if you want to get anything done. Does that make that person vile?
Well, what's the definition of vile before we get too far?
All right.
Vile definition. Let's make sure we're official. Extremely unpleasant, morally bad or wicked, or a more archaic is of little worth or value. So I would say in that first sense of extremely unpleasant, like having to go and do these things and basically force the world into, like Peter ends up forcing the world, not necessarily on purpose, into war where violence does happen. Verlomi does end up making a move that kills thousands. Ultimately, good comes out of it.
Better than millions, right?
Yes, it's the lesser evil, right? It dropped the nuclear bombs on Japan or land troops and lose how many countless more lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
that grinds out for another 5 years.
Yeah. So the decision itself, having to make that decision is vile. And someone that's able to make that decision and live with themselves, by consequence, has a taint of that with them. And that's the burden of leadership. Well, but that's the burden of leadership because
at the end of the day,
they made that choice. Now they have to live with it.
Washington did stuff like that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he isn't mentioned as vile.
Well, it's because we whitewash history.
He's mentioned as great, right? Because the things that he's done, it's perceived that he is forced to do them. He has no choice because the country is at war, right? But the things that Jefferson does, he's vile because the country isn't at war. The country is,
power
but
grabs.
Well, I mean, they could be at war. They ended up at war, which, by the way, I think Jefferson kind of led them there with his embargoes. But whatever. But he was in a no-win situation. They were impressing sailors. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, in the same thing with the biggest criticism of John Adams is the Aliens and Sedition Acts. But if you look at what actually was happening, there was like the French people were coming here and trying to propagate like division within the ranks, and Jefferson, his own vice president, was kind of
working
helping
with
them along.
Yep. Definitely. My
Hard
head was
decisions.
going more towards like General Lee, where like we look at General Lee and say like this dude was bad. He worked for the South during the Civil War. He was just a man defending his homeland. That's how he saw it. He never saw it through the other lenses. And yes, they do talk about it in this book. And Hooker was an idiot. I think is what they also said, and I just chuckled at that. I'm like, I'm sure Jeff loved that one.
I almost picked up his biography today at the bookstore, but didn't have enough room in my hands. I was already full, so I have to get the next run.
Is that how you determine how many books you get? Can I fit them?
Pretty
Can I
much.
carry them?
Pretty much. I had a coffee, I had my cane, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books in my hands, and they started dropping, and that meant that I was at my limit.
At least you know when to stop. I don't, because I buy most of mine on Amazon, and it's so impulsive. It's so bad.
I bought 2 books on Amazon today too, so don't tell my wife.
Well, I realized I didn't actually have a physical copy of the next book. I'm like, oh, I should probably fix that. Because it didn't come in the box set that I bought. But we're getting towards the end here. We have 2 people that we haven't really talked about. One person in particular we haven't talked about yet. And that's Bean and Petra and their arc, which was a bigger portion of earlier books. They still play a huge role here. Bean basically sets everything up for Peter. And then because he's 20 or so, right, he's getting on in age. And for his quote unquote species, he needs to become weightless so that he can live. We do find out what happens with the embryos from the last book. And they're planted in random women globally from a Shields network, and the IF helps track them down. We get a lot of Petra and Bean's marriage and how, like, after the honeymoon period and once they start having children, they only wanted one, but they ended up with, was it 7 or 8 all at once? How does all that shake out? Is there anything in particular you want to start there?
This was hard, okay? Like, I was frustrated with the way that Bean handled this situation, and I was also frustrated with the way that Petra responded to the situation, because as frustrated I was with Bean, it was very rational, and he was probably right in the way that handled it, because they were able to get more quality time together.
So what is it? For the listeners.
Oh yeah, because he leaves into space. He makes this plan with the IF that he's going to go off and he's going to take because not all of the babies are, although they are kind of all special. We find that out too, just not as special as Bean. They don't have, some of them have Anton's key, right? They're born really small. They're born premature. And he's going to take them without Petra, and he's going to leave Petra with the quote normal babies, which it kills me every time he talks about himself as not normal. Like he kills me. Like it just really bothered me, and it bothered everybody else in the book too. Like they were sick and tired of hearing him. It was almost like Bean is a very lovable character throughout the whole book. Yeah, but this is a part of Bean, the self-loathing about who he is and not loving himself. It is frustrating, probably for the people around him, because they love him and he is special. And you shouldn't hate yourself just because you're different. And I think that's kind of the ultimate, lesson that you want to teach all of your children, because everybody comes out a little bit different. Is like, you can't just lean into the thing that makes you different, right? Become the best version of who you are, and that has value. And Bean has so much value, and he hates himself that he wants to kill off his species,
because with everything he's done is because we have Nikolai. That would be the control, right? And Bean is the experiment. The only reason why Bean is all the more extraordinary than Nikolai is, who's just an above average person who had an aptitude that ended up in battle school, it's because of what Bean sees as a curse. He's going to die young, and he's going to keep growing until his heart gives out, right? He doesn't see the value in living 20 years when everyone else gets to live 80 or 100. He sees his intellect, and most people that have a high intelligence do have some aspect of themselves that they don't like. Especially the intelligence. It's hard to talk to people that just don't understand what you're saying. Yes. And if you have no way to communicate to those people, it becomes extremely difficult and lonely.
but he
Intellectual
does have.
loneliness, and there's some other, I forget what the exact words are, is talked about in this book. It's a loneliness that Bean feels, and he doesn't want for children or the children's children, now that he can't control it with his children.
But I think that's like,
Playing
how does
God?
he feel that way? No, but how does he feel that way? Because he is surrounded by people of maybe not the same intellect, but somewhere in there. And he's got Petra. Like they've got something real and special together. Like
Yeah.
he is not lonely. He is loved. And not only is he loved by Petra, but like he's loved by Sister Carlotta. He's loved by Polk. Like there's so much love in Bean's life that he doesn't recognize until the end. And oh my gosh, when I read the letter at the end of the book, the letter that Peter reads about the names, I lost it. Like I'm getting ready to lose it right now, because it just like, it was like this moment of like, you ever
Clarity,
like, well, not just the clarity, but like you watch a movie, right? And there's like a flashback scene where like they talk about all these. I had that. Like I had every flashback from every book, like in that moment, which by the way, amazing writing. Like amazing writing, like amazing writing. To be able to do that to somebody else's brain, I think is fantastic. And I lost it. There was something else I was going to mention there though, because I got off on that. Go ahead.
Well, since we're talking about the letter, like what was the standout? Which part of that letter stood out the most to you?
The names. When he started talking about the names, when he brought back Carlotta, that's when I lost it. Like that thinking about Sister Carlotta, it thinking about Polk, I just
Yeah.
I
was just going to say, like, for me, it was when he started talking about a little bit about Sister Carlotta. I'll read an excerpt here. And then it occurred to me, then it occurs to me, what if Sister Carlotta was right? What if God is waiting for me with open arms? Then all I'm doing is postponing my reunion. I think of meeting God. Will it be like when I met my father and mother? I almost wrote Nikolai's parents here. I liked them. And then he said, like it or not, Hiram, you were God in my life. I didn't invite you. I didn't even like you, but you kept meddling. And that's the part for me. Like, that's the part that like gives me a little bit of those goosebumps, because Bean realizes this, and he's also having that perspective that pulls all the way back to that early book, kind of like you were mentioning with Sister Carlotta. And it's like, wait, is Bean going to convert? Is he going to be religious in his old age?
So he is his father. Like, that's what he is saying. He's not God. He's his God. He gave him life in a lot of ways. He's his father. And he does have a God, and there is a God, and whether Bean believes in him or not, like in Bean's vision, this very rational, intelligent vision of the world, he's his God because he's there guiding him. He's actively guiding him. So what Bean is saying in this to me is, if I have to choose between a God that I can't touch or feel that guides me without me knowing, or a human, a father figure who guides me that I can touch and feel, I choose the Father on earth over the Father not on earth. And I, as far as like Christianity is like, that is God, that is Jesus, that is the Holy Trinity, that is the whole thing right there. And I think that Bean is not embracing that as much as he's embracing the rationality of the person in his life helping him.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
But here's the thing. God put that person in his life. God put Sister Carlotta in his life. God put Polk in his life. God put Petra in his life. God was the one that was actually guiding him by putting those people in his life. What is it? Is it Matthew or Mark that there's a story in one of those books. So it's like, look for God in others, right? Because God is navigating the waters for you. He is guiding the people in your life who are going to guide you, and then trust those people that God puts in your life. And Bean does trust those people. And it mentions before, they trust him, right? They trust him. This guy that somehow tests off the charts, who is now asking questions about the tests that we're taking, right? It's like, what are we going to do with this kid, this weird kid who seems to be smarter than anybody we've ever thought about? It's like, well, we can, I don't know, hide from him, destroy him, or trust him. And they decide to trust him.
I do want to talk about one more thing in the letter, but this brings us to one of the earlier points about ambition. Why isn't he the one that unites the world?
Because he doesn't have ambition to do it.
Smartest person alive, the one person that could certainly do it with the least amount of casualties, doesn't want it.
Doesn't want it. And what did I say before? If you don't want it, you're not going to get it. If you can incentivize people to do the thing that they want to do, then it'll happen. If that person doesn't want to do it, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to make them do it. They will destroy themselves before they allow you to control them.
Yeah. Kind of have a vision back to Crime and Punishment, not to give you PTSD.
Oh my gosh, what a terrible book. Can't hold a candle to Orson Scott Card.
So Graf does respond to Bean, because Bean asks, well, he mentions, I hope Petra remarries, because he divorces her. But he also asks, like, did I do enough? Did I do a good job?
That is such like the father-son question to be asking, right? Like that's.
But what did Graf say?
I'm trying to find it. Hold on.
It's page 342. So he starts off the response, "You did enough, Bean."
Yeah.
And he ends it like, "You lived up to my trust. You exceeded it. You're a great soul. I looked up to you long before you got so tall. You did okay." And it's like, that is such a like fatherly thing to keep them at the, like, say, yes, here's your answer you're looking for, but also like keeping them at arm's length in a way, because you don't want them to, you want your kids to grow up to not need you to tell them that they did a good job. They need to understand, yes, this is the right path.
But they all want it.
Yeah.
So what you said about Petra getting a real father for your kids, I know you weren't talking about yourself, but I have to say it because it's true and you deserve to hear it. I'm ready to cry right now. Bean, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of myself because I actually got to know you. Oh my gosh, like that cut me like a dagger. I remember sitting there after you figured out what was really going on in the war against the buggers. What do I do with this kid? We can't keep a secret from him. What I decided was I'll trust him. Like, that is the epitome of a father and son relationship right there. That is the epitome of like what it means to like trust in God and trust in others. And I'm going to lose it again, Craig. Like, this is just, we haven't even got to Peter yet.
Let's talk about Peter then. Well, while I try to find the one thing I want to talk about before we close.
You lived up to my trust. You exceeded it. You are a great soul. I looked up to you long before you grew so tall. Like, again, it's just such, like, that is the father and son. Like, that is the father and son right there. Bean didn't have a father. Well, he kind of had this father who was this evil person who dumped him in a, like, was going to burn him alive. And he has this chip on his shoulder and he's alone his whole life. But at the end of the day, he's got love from a father that a lot of people don't get, right? He's got trust, because I think in a lot of ways, when you are a dad, there is this constant, what am I going to do with this kid, right? Your kids are always figuring out ways to get in trouble, right?
Oh,
they
yes.
outsmart you, even though like they're so much younger and you can't figure out why they outsmart you.
Their brains just keep going.
And you have a choice. You have a choice as a father, okay? What are you going to do with this kid? Are you going to think the worst of this kid be afraid of him and instill that fear into that child, or are you going to trust that kid to trust himself? Right? It is that trust, that love that breeds goodness in the world.
Yep.
God, man, that's all right. So Peter.
Yes.
All right.
The
Do you have
ball's
a
in your
question
court.
lined up for Peter, or am I just gonna like start to rant about Peter? Like there's where
Go for it.
Hold on. I gotta find the page. Where is the page where it's Peter and his dad? Where Peter basically comes to, or his dad comes to him and is like,
Good job, son.
good job, son. It's same thing that, with that we were just talking about with Bean. It's that moment that every child wants, whether they want to admit it to themselves or not, and every father is resistant to give it to their child because they want their child to be independent, to not need it to be successful.
I don't actually. I think it's after the hegemon's speech where he talks about the FPE. I think it's page 191, maybe.
Yeah, it was pretty early on.
Peter shook his head, we came to tell you, said Father, we're very proud of you. Peter shook his head. It's only the first step on a long road. We don't have 20% of the world's population yet. It will take time to integrate these new nations into the FPE. And then his father says, first step on the right road. And then his mother says, a year ago, if somebody had put up a list of these nations and said they would ever unite into one coherent nation under a single constitution and surrender command of their armed forces to the hegemon, is there anyone who would not have laughed?
And so it goes on page 192. Your place in history was already assured by your work as Locke before you ever became hegemon, said Father. But today, Peter, you became a great man. He sat up and found himself gasping, no sobbing, quietly, but his body was racked with sobs, as if he had just been relieved of a terrible burden, as if he had just learned that his terminal disease had spontaneously healed itself. That hole in his heart, right? We talked about it earlier with Verlomi. Verlomi didn't fill the hole in his heart, okay? His hole was with his father. His hole was also a little bit with his brother. And the way that he treated his brother when he was a younger boy.
And he talks about this at the end of the book as well.
And he struggles to forgive himself for that. And he's constantly trying to prove himself to himself, but really to his dad. Because he seems to think that he's overlooked and overshadowed in his life. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the circumstances of life, right? Like when you are a parent of 3 kids, like it's impossible to give everybody the same share of your love and same share of your attention. And from a child's perspective, that might look like neglect or favoritism of one over the other. But the reality is maybe one needed the parent more than it needs the other one. I find myself with that challenge all the time. My wife and I talk about it. We have 5 kids, right? And in life, the best way to like manage a lot of responsibilities is like prioritize, right? And when you have 5 kids at 5 different age groups, some of them need you more than others at different times, which means that you are neglecting the other ones at times where they're a little bit more independent than the other ones.
Or as time goes on, you end up spending more time or less time with some of them. Like my mother was only, she didn't have a job by the time I was born. So she was with me from beginning all the way through the age of 18. She was working with, after my other brothers, right? So there's that time period that I got that they never got, which seems like favoritism. I'm also the youngest, but that's just how the cookie crumbled.
Right. And then, continuing on with Peter I just mentioned it. He feels guilt for the way that he treated Ender. And he's highly competitive. Like he wanted to beat Ender, but he really wanted a relationship with Ender, and he wasn't able to get it. And those,
because Ender always ran away and attached to Valentine.
Right. And so then he naturally didn't like Valentine either. And he found himself isolated in a way.
Yep.
Which Peter was isolated in a way, and we talked about it a little bit. One of the things that really wrecked me about this book is all of these people are isolated in a way. Because of their intellect, because of the responsibility that they carry,
mm-hmm.
there isn't a lot of people that they can, float in the same circle with. And Peter is the one out of all of them that's separated for most of this, right? Because he's not in battle school, which he always thinks he's not in battle school because he's too aggressive. Yeah. And he finds out later that that's not really the real reason. Right. And it makes Peter almost, it's almost a good thing, right? Because it makes Peter think just a little bit deeper about what he's doing.
Yep.
And it wrecks me because, I've made a choice in my life to change my career and to do something different. And I, at times, feel isolated and it hurts and it sucks. But these are choices, back to Petra, right? These are choices that I made. Right. I recognize that, and I'm angry at myself sometimes over that. There's that scene where she's like, and Peter, she decides to go off and she helps Peter.
Yeah.
And she
finishes Bean's plans to conquer, basically invade and/or conquer Russia. And she ends up staying for a year and a half.
And missing all that time with her babies. And then she comes home and she immediately regrets it. Immediately regrets it. And what she was doing, she was avoiding the difficult thing of having to go home and deal with Bean and the other children being gone. She was avoiding. And we all know people in our lives that avoid problems. It's not always the best to avoid problems because you can't get that time back. And, it's funny the way that Peter handles it. He's there. He reads the letter. He adds 3 words to the letter that aren't there.
Yep.
She realizes that he wasn't just reading them. He meant them. And he is Petra's second husband.
Yep. Because he was basically being the father for those children, while her mother, which would be their grandmother, took care of them.
And I think that Peter probably loved Bean as much as Petra loved Bean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna wreck me all over again.
Well, there's one piece we haven't talked about, and it leads into the standout lines that I have listed here. I don't know if you have any we haven't talked about. I think it's when Bean is speaking, Bean and/or Petra are speaking with Valescu, it's when they're speaking with Rackham, and Rackham says, "Life is full of grief to exactly the degree we allow ourselves to love other people."
Oh, that's a good one.
And man, is that true.
Yep.
As I go into my 30s, I try to be more in touch with other humans, be more human, to use a Bean expression. I find myself empathizing even in books a lot more. Like after writing Emergence and Fall of the West and having to write characters' deaths, it's like, okay, I think I understand this now, and I shouldn't avoid it. I should lean into it. Because it's the only way you can have meaningful relationships.
Right. And I think that when we're young, we do avoid those things because it does hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But
or that we had something like that and we were hurt and that changed us.
It's like
that definitely was for me.
Is it better to love and lost or to have never loved at all?
Loved and lost, 100%.
Of course. Absolutely. Right. And the people that are, to never have loved at all, those are your avoiders. They're avoiding the thing in their heart. They're afraid. They're fear. They're the ones that the dad looked at them and instilled that fear because they weren't sure of what they were going to become. And the reason that they weren't sure of what they would become in a lot of ways is because they probably didn't trust themselves. And so if they didn't trust themselves, they aren't going to be able to trust their child, right? And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other standout line, I think it's Petra thinking. I forget which page it was on. It's somewhere in the middle. She thinks to herself, nobody ever completely means what they say. Even when they think they're telling the truth, there's always something hidden behind their words.
True that.
And what she's saying is there's always an ulterior motive.
Mm-hmm. I like to say, like, there's a lot of truth in lies.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're dealing with the people that are avoiders.
Yeah. The lies of omission in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say about the avoiders. If you go and read some of my poetry from 2016, 2017, 100% on the, I don't even believe in this concept of love. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Like,
that was you? You were an avoider?
100%. It took me years to get over that. But that was self-inflicted wound, really. But
yeah.
Do you have any standout lines before we close?
Where is it? Hold on. Where Petra and Bean are talking. Okay, this is a different one, but ambition leads you to great risk, but ambition never leads you to certain destruction. Unless you're a fool.
Yeah.
Next line.
I'm about ready to say it's like something seems off with that.
But I mean, I think it's true. It's the whole concept of, like, look, ambition is this thing that can unite us or divide us. Flat out. And it's up to the people. You know, back to, like, your first question, or one of your first questions is, like, do governments or do you need leaders to make things work? You need
figureheads in government.
You need figureheads. Yep, you need them.
Yeah, you need the visionary. You need the JFK to say, we're going to do this thing.
Oh, man,
to get everyone in line.
I've been reading about JFK, and I gotta say, like, I know, like, he was kind of like, he was a womanizing guy, and he did some things that were, but that guy was brilliant. Like, he was legit brilliant, and he was a great leader.
Yeah. He had to do something. He was in pain all the time, so he had to do something to keep his mind off of it. Why not be a great person?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he was a great person. He was a great leader.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an interesting concept. I think you touched on it in this podcast, is like, can you be a great leader and not be a great person?
Yeah. I mean, some of the greatest leaders throughout history that we can name, like Genghis Khan, of all the Mongols, he was probably the most moderate. Like, his policies were completely different than how the Mongols approached life beforehand. It's like, if they surrender, they're fine. If they don't surrender, okay, we're going to go the Mongol way here and annihilate them. But, like, he was actually really good about everyone can practice their own religion, technology, whatever. Like, as long as you're not getting in the way of the conquest, life's good. And in that way, he was a great leader. Paved the way for some very interesting East-West there in Europe.
All right, I got a couple more here real quick. All I say now is, either you act or you don't act. Either you do the thing that makes a difference, or you do nothing at all. And then I got one more here. This is the one I was looking for earlier. I couldn't find it in the book, but I know I tweeted it. So this is Bean and Petra talking. I don't give up, and I don't wear down. I'm not just a rock, I'm a diamond. Boom. Their love is real. I love those two.
Even if they get divorced.
And she marries Peter. Like, it was like,
yeah.
And then there was that scene where she's at both of their graves. Like, she leaves both of her husbands.
Yeah. And she reads the biography, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of, is it Bean or is it of Peter?
Peter. Yeah. Which, is that an actual book? Because it sounded like it was like another book somewhere.
I don't think it is. Because if I remember correctly, like
Speaker for the Dead, The Hive Queens. These all sound like book titles. Are there books with these names that I can go buy and read?
Speaker of the Dead, I think, is a book.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking.
But that is about the buggers, I thought. Yeah. It's set 3,000 years after the events in Ender's Game.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight.
You're welcome. But hey, next month, November, we got one more to go. Shadows in Flight.
Yeah, it's a short one.
It's much shorter, but we get to see what happens with Bean and his cursed children, quote unquote.
Yeah, and I think the one that they don't find probably finds them, doesn't he? I bet you that's what happens. It's gotta be what happens.
I'm gonna insert the best poker face I can.
I mean, come on. He's in this book and very little. Why else would he be in this book?
What, the fourth child or Bean?
The other child.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My mother's actually reading it right now, and I think I'm going to really enjoy this book. I've only actually read it once. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it way more the second time around, because there's not a big gap between the earlier books in this one.
Yeah.
It really helps make sure it ties together. It's also going to give you the itch to read the Ender's side of life, so it'll be good.
Yeah, we are going to have to do all of those next season. Just gonna have a whole season of.
We don't need to do a season. We'll just do a month where it's Ender month.
Ooh, I love it.
That sounds like a lot of work. What did I sign myself up for?
Well, that's all we have for now, folks. Let us know in the comments what stuck out to you most. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And for those tuning in on Spotify and Substack, please like and share.
For those on YouTube, kindly give us a thumbs up.
And you can check out the Substack version of this podcast for older episodes and future books we're looking at reading together. And you can find all links for What the Book at craigtstewart.com. With all that said, have a good one, folks.
Peace and love.